It's Akon. I'll give you a hint. Listen, man, it appears Caitlin Clark has finally helped these WNBA owners make a couple dollars. Not a whole lot, but a little something after nearly 30 years. Now, we have to be aware, you guys.
Right there. That's the energy we need to talk about, because after nearly 3 decades of losses, the WNBA has just announced something that has never happened before. For the first time in league history, players will receive revenue sharing. A total of $8 million is going to be distributed across all 13 teams. According to the league, this happened because the WNBA finally reached its financial targets in 2025. But this is where things get complicated. The WNBA itself is making this announcement in the middle of some of the most difficult contract negotiations in women's sports history. So, we have to ask the obvious question: is this a real financial milestone, or is it also a strategic move that could strengthen the players' position in the negotiations?
Underdog WNBA. Here was put out. Remember, this is being put out by the WNBPA. This is on Underdog WNBA. Katie Barnes. WNBA generated enough revenue in 2025 to trigger revenue sharing with players for the first time. For the first time. Per Katie Barnes, teams will receive a pot of $8 million to be dispersed among players. So,
Katie Barnes broke this story on ESPN, and the details are important. According to the WNBA Players Association, the league told union leaders earlier this month that it had reached the required financial benchmark. All 13 teams will share a total of $8 million. That means it is not $8 million for each team, but $8 million combined. Each team will receive about $615,000 to distribute among its players. The revenue targets in the 2020 CBA were based on the league's 2019 numbers, with the targets increasing by 20% each year. The COVID-19 pandemic caused revenue to fall in 2020 and 2021, which made those targets seem almost impossible to reach. But the league finally reached the benchmark in 2025, during Caitlin Clark's second season in the WNBA.
On ESPN by Katie Barnes. Now, mind you, this is information coming from the WNBPA. We still have to hear what the WNBA ownership side has to say about this. Here it says WNBA made enough money for revenue sharing. For the first time, let me pause this right here. Maybe I can't, whatever. For the first time in history, the WNBA
But here's what is missing from this announcement. The WNBA did not provide actual financial records. It did not share the exact amount of revenue the league generated, and it did not reveal the specific number that had to be reached to trigger the revenue sharing payment. ESPN reported all of this. The league announced the good news, but it kept the detailed financial numbers private. That is not necessarily suspicious by itself. Private businesses usually do not open their financial records to the public. But the timing is what makes people question it. The negotiations between the league and the Players Association have become very difficult. Revenue sharing and salary caps are still major issues. The CBA negotiations have both sides firmly divided, with each side fighting hard over how the league's money should be shared.
What we're fighting for makes sense and how we should keep fighting, WNBPA Treasurer Brianna Turner told ESPN. Under the 2020 CBA, players will receive 50% of shared revenue, defined in the CBA as the amount of revenue over a predetermined threshold, minus 30% for expenses. Okay, and this is just a bunch of numbers talk, but Caitlin Clark, it appears the WNBA, this is the WNBPA side, again, Caitlin Clark has brought in enough dough.
Brianna Turner, the WNBA Players Association treasurer, told ESPN, this shows their value and proves that what they are fighting for makes sense. Nika Awam, the union president, said the players have grown stronger as a union and have combined their names, images, and likenesses into one collective group. She explained that the union exists to represent all players, and this revenue sharing allows everyone to benefit from the league's growth. Under the 2020 CBA, players receive 50% of the league's shared revenue. Shared revenue is calculated from the money made above a set financial threshold, after 30% is deducted for expenses. So, if the league reached that threshold for the first time in 2025, it means the WNBA made enough money above its baseline to trigger the $8 million payout after those expense deductions were taken into account. The players are currently asking for 27.5% of the league's total revenue in their new CBA proposal. That would be a big increase from the current system. Nika Awami also made it clear that the players do not want a work stoppage, but they have to be prepared for one. She said it is fair to say that this revenue-sharing announcement is part of their preparation and a way to show that they are ready if things get to that point. Many deals in sports are completed at the last minute, and this is the players' way of showing that they are serious. That is the strategic part everyone is talking about. This announcement comes at a time when CBA negotiations are becoming more intense. The players are basically saying, we just proved that the league can be profitable. We showed that the financial goals people once said were impossible can actually be reached. Now, we believe the players should be paid accordingly.
We've been losing money. We ain't trying to lose more. And that's where the lines are drawn in the sand. So what you have to ask yourself as ladies is, look at what you've built and look at all that's happening in the world of sports. Can you afford to jeopardize a season? Yeah. Because in the end, the owners who are not known, who are not in the public eye, who are not public faces for the league, they can sit back and say, hey, we got our money. We ain't trying to lose more. So it hurts the game and we can't make it, but we ain't trying to lose more anyway. You're ladies, you're trying to make this money and you're trying to build off the league. And my
Stephen
advice...
A. Smith also gave his opinion on this, and his point gets to the heart of the disagreement. He said the players deserve to be paid and that they have helped build the league into what it is today. But he also pointed out that the owners have been part of the league for a long time and have lost money over the years. They do not want to keep losing more money. That is where the disagreement begins. His advice to the players was to keep fighting for better pay, but also be reasonable and understand where the owners have limits. Most importantly, he said the players should support whoever brings more attention and marketing value to the league, whether that is Caitlin Clark, the internet schools, or anyone else, because when the league grows, everyone benefits. A rising tide lifts all boats, and a more popular WNBA ultimately creates more opportunities and money for everyone involved.
And they definitely didn't want to ride the Caitlin Clark wave. They was jealous, envious, and being haters. We all know that. And here also in the statement, it says, this is a quote from Nneka Ogwumike, okay? It says, we've grown as a union and put our name, image, and likeness into a collective package. WNBPA President Nneka Ogwumike said to ESPN, the union exists for us to be able to represent all players. So I think it's a great way for all players to be able to share in the growth. Negotiations over new CBA, which will begin.
But that's exactly what did not happen with Caitlin Clark. The league did not fully take advantage of the attention she brought. There was jealousy, there was envy, and there were flagrant fouls and cheap shots. Some veterans questioned whether her popularity was legitimate. Some media members wrote articles questioning whether the attention Clark received was fair to other players who had been building the league for years. Instead of taking full advantage of the moment, large parts of the WNBA community spent the 2024 season debating whether Clark deserved the spotlight. And now, just 1 year later, the league announces that it is finally profitable enough to trigger revenue sharing for the first time in 28 years. The connection is impossible to ignore. Clark's rookie season in 2024 brought unprecedented television ratings, sold-out arenas, and mainstream media coverage that the WNBA had never experienced before. Her second season in 2025, even though she played only 13 games, continued that momentum. Her financial impact is undeniable.
It appears that Caitlin Clark has finally brought in enough money for this league after 29, nearly 30 years of these owners losing money. It only took Caitlin Clark 2 years to make them some money. Get down in the comments.
Here's why this revenue sharing announcement is so important and why it is getting such strong reactions from both sides. First, the timing matters. This news comes in the middle of CBA negotiations, when both the players and the owners are trying to gain an advantage. The players can now point to real evidence that the league is making money. They can say their value has been proven, that the financial goals people once thought were impossible have been reached, and that player salaries should reflect this new reality. That gives the players a strong position in negotiations. Second, look at where the information came from. The announcement came from the WNBA Players Association, not the league office or the owners. The league did not comment on the payments and did not provide detailed financial information. That means the players are controlling the story about the league's profitability while the owners are staying quiet. That silence could mean the owners disagree with how the numbers are being presented, or they may simply be saving their response for the negotiating table instead of speaking publicly. Third, there is the amount of money involved. $8 million divided among 13 teams is meaningful, but it is not a massive amount. It comes to about $615,000 per team. If that money is divided among 12 to 15 players, each player could receive somewhere around $40,000 to $50,000, depending on the roster and how the team distributes the money. That is a nice bonus, but it is not life-changing money for professional athletes. It shows that the league can make money, but it does not prove that the league can maintain the level of revenue sharing the players are asking for in the new CBA. Fourth, there is the Caitlin Clark factor. Everyone following the league understands why revenue increased enough to trigger this revenue sharing. Caitlin Clark brought huge attention, television audiences, ticket sales, and interest to the WNBA. Her impact on the league's finances is a major part of this story. That creates an uncomfortable situation because all of the players are negotiating for a larger share of the league's revenue, while a large part of the recent growth came from one player. Fifth, this sets an important precedent. If the league reached this revenue level in 2025, can it do the same in 2026 and beyond? Revenue sharing only matters if the success continues. A one-time bonus does not completely change the league's financial situation. The players need to show that this is not just a temporary spike but a new normal. At the same time, the owners need to see consistent profits before agreeing to much higher revenue sharing percentages in the new CBA. Sixth, there are major strategic implications for the negotiations. Nika Awami has openly said that the players are preparing for a possible work stoppage. That is a clear message. The players are willing to use public pressure and the media to strengthen their position. They are not only negotiating behind closed doors. They are also trying to shape how fans and the media view the league's financial situation. That is a smart strategy, but it also increases the tension between the two sides. Seventh, we have not heard much from the owners. The WNBA has declined to comment, so right now we are mainly hearing the players' side of the story. The owners could argue that one profitable year does not erase decades of losses. They could say they have supported the league financially for years because they believed in its long-term future. They could also argue that the players' request for 27.5% of total league revenue is too high based on the league's financial history. But so far, they have not made those arguments publicly. Eighth, this could have major consequences for the future of the WNBA. If negotiations fail and the players go on strike, the league could lose the momentum it has finally built. Caitlin Clark's third season could be delayed or even cancelled. Expansion plans could be affected. Television deals could become harder to negotiate, and sponsors could pull back. The league is at a very important point because it is finally getting more mainstream attention. A work stoppage could undo years of progress. The biggest question is whether the WNBA's recent financial success is a sustainable new reality or simply a temporary increase caused by one generational player. If the growth is sustainable, the players have a strong argument that they should benefit from it. If it is only a temporary spike, then the owners have a legitimate reason to be careful about promising revenue sharing levels they may not be able to maintain. The truth is that both sides have valid arguments. The players are right that they are the product. Their talent and performance create the entertainment that brings in fans, viewers, and revenue, so they should be paid fairly. The owners are also right that they have taken losses for many years and invested money into building the league, its infrastructure, and its marketing. They need to see stable profits before making much larger financial commitments. The challenge is finding a deal that recognizes both sides. The players also need to understand that 1 or 2 profitable years do not erase 28 years of losses. But the owners need to understand that if they do not pay players enough during this period of growth, they could lose top talent to overseas leagues that offer better money. So the real question is whether both sides can put their egos and frustrations aside long enough to realize that they need each other. The players need the WNBA platform to grow their careers, increase their earning power, and build their brands. The owners need elite players to make their investments successful. Neither side benefits from a long work stoppage, but emotions and frustration can make negotiations difficult. The players feel undervalued after years of being told to wait while the league grew. The owners may feel unappreciated after spending years covering losses to keep the league alive. Both sides have understandable frustrations, and that makes compromise harder. What happens next could define the WNBA for the next decade. If both sides reach a fair deal that allows the league to keep growing, everyone wins. If negotiations fall apart and the season is delayed or cancelled, everyone loses. The momentum could disappear. Casual fans who just started watching could move on to something else. Sponsors who recently invested in the league could pull back, and the opportunity to build the WNBA into a stable and profitable league could be lost. So, here's what I'll be watching. Will the owners respond publicly to the revenue sharing announcement? Will they release their own financial numbers to challenge the players' argument? And will both sides show any willingness to compromise before negotiations reach the final stage that Nika Awami mentioned? Right now, it feels like both sides are preparing for a fight instead of preparing for a deal.